Good afternoon. Will you please stand behind the witness chair? Raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this trial?
I do.
Please take a seat.
Thank you.
And would you please remove your mask? State your full name and spell it.
First name is Michelle. Last name is Frascone. M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E. Last name Frascone.
Okay, we have a court reporter taking down everything that's being said. So you have to say yes or no instead of shaking your head. Don't say uh-huh or uh-uh. Only one person can talk at a time. Wait until the question is finished before you answer. If you don't understand a question, ask for clarification. And finally, if an objection is made, stop talking. Don't answer it unless I tell you to.
Thank you.
Counsel?
Would you state your occupation for the record?
I'm a police officer for the state of Minnesota.
What's your current, what law enforcement agency are you with?
I work for the state of Minnesota, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension.
What is your current rank?
Assistant Special Agent in Charge.
How long have you been with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension?
I have been with them since 2016.
What unit are you currently assigned to?
Currently assigned to the Force Investigative Unit.
Prior to working for the BCA, do I understand that you have prior law enforcement experience?
That's correct.
And what is that?
Prior to coming to the BCA, I worked for the city of Woodbury as a police officer.
And that was from 2006 to 2016, correct?
That's correct.
And you're a licensed peace officer still today?
Yes, I am.
And you take continuing education courses to maintain that license?
Yes.
Based on your law enforcement experience, did you acquire specialized knowledge or experience in the use of firearms and other weapons such as tasers?
I did.
If asked, are you able to describe the basic features and functionality of weapons such as firearms and tasers?
I am.
As part of your work in the Force Investigations Unit, do I understand that you've responded or participated in the investigation of over 100 officer-involved shootings?
That's correct.
Both as a lead agent and at times a supporting agent?
Correct.
And you were assigned to assist in the investigation of the case involving Kim Potter, correct?
That's correct.
I want to get right to your actions on April 11th of 2001. Do you recall that day?
I do.
And what were you doing?
It was a Sunday afternoon and I was at home.
Okay. And did you receive a report of an officer-involved shooting in Brooklyn Center which prompted a response from you?
Yes, I did.
And could you describe that response?
I was contacted by my supervisor who requested that I respond to the Brooklyn Center Police Department.
And when did you arrive to the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
I think I arrived around 4 p.m.
When you arrived, were you the first agent at the precinct, or was anyone else from the BCA already present?
Prior to my arrival, Special Agent in Charge Scott Mueller was at the police department.
And what did you do when you first arrived?
When I first arrived, I met with Agent Mueller, who provided me just some general information about what the investigation was involving.
Soon after you met with Agent Mueller, were you joined by another BCA agent?
Yes, I was.
And who was that?
Agent Sam McGinnis.
At the time after you were briefed by Mueller and spoke to Agent McGinnis, did you learn who the involved officer or officers were?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Officer Kim Potter was the involved officer, and then there were 2 witness officers that were also at the agency.
Was that Officer Lucky and Sergeant Johnson?
That's correct.
Okay. After meeting with Agent Mueller and Agent McGinnis, who was the next individual who you encountered?
I went into the conference room that Officer Potter was in with her counsel, and then at the point after that, I went upstairs and met with Sergeant Johnson.
Okay, well, let's talk about both of those encounters. You said you went upstairs to see Johnson, so do I understand there's a conference room on a lower level or a main level of the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's where you saw Officer Potter?
Correct.
Was Agent McGinnis with you as well?
Yes, he was.
When you observed Officer Potter, was she still wearing her uniform?
Yes, she was.
How much time did you spend with her?
A very short amount of time.
Okay. Before that date, did you know her?
I did.
In what capacity?
In a professional capacity, and our husbands had prior worked together many years ago.
Okay. Would you agree that Ms. Potter is sitting here at council table over at the front council table closest to you?
Yes.
Okay. At the time you encountered her, did you observe whether she had a firearm on her duty belt?
Yes, I did.
Did you receive any information about that firearm?
I was advised that that firearm was Sergeant Johnson's firearm.
Okay. What was the first action that you and Agent McGinnis took when you encountered her?
Photographs were taken of her uniform.
And what happened to the equipment that she was wearing?
It was collected.
Okay. At that time, did you know why she was in possession of Sergeant Johnson's firearm?
I did not.
After the firearm was collected, do you recall what was done with it?
It was placed inside of a box.
Okay. Did you observe at that time whether it was loaded or unloaded?
I did.
And what was it?
It was unloaded.
Unloaded? So you took Sergeant Johnson's gun from Officer Potter. What did you do after that?
I went upstairs and met with Sergeant Johnson.
At some point, did you also speak again with Agent Mueller?
I did.
Did you reveal that you had a prior interaction with Officer Potter?
I did.
And did that affect your involvement in this investigation?
Not a lot. I just asked for, to have other duties assigned to me, and at that time I was assigned to Sergeant Johnson.
Okay. And why did you ask to not have duties related to Officer Potter?
Just out of just making sure that there was no conflict or any issues as a result of it.
Sometimes we use the words appearance of impropriety. You wanted to avoid something like that, am I correct?
Yeah, I'm going to let you answer that. Objection overruled.
So you said you were tasked with then going to talk to Sergeant Johnson?
That's correct.
And did you bring anything with you when you met with him?
I did.
And what was that?
I brought his handgun upstairs.
Okay. And when you brought his handgun upstairs, what did you anticipate doing?
I wasn't sure of his involvement at the time, so I wanted to make sure that it was with me. Many times we find that supervisors will exchange weapons when they weren't actually have any involvement in the case, and so when I went upstairs to meet with him, there was a possibility that his weapon would be returned. However, I became aware that he was a first-person witness, and so at that time I held on to his handgun and then collected Officer Potter's handgun
Where did you discover Officer Potter's handgun?
in his holster.
Okay. So you made a plan to collect both firearms at that point?
That's correct.
Okay. I now want to discuss your interactions with Sergeant Johnson. How much time did you spend with him?
I guess I would approximate 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Did you take any photographs of him?
I did.
At the time, was he wearing Officer Potter's firearm?
Yes, he was.
Did you inspect that firearm to see whether it was loaded or unloaded?
I did.
And was it
It was loaded.
loaded? And what did you do with that firearm after you collected it?
I secured it in a box for our crime scene.
When you collected both firearms, did you document them by serial number to ensure that they were distinguished?
I did.
Okay. And to whom did you bring those firearms after you documented them?
Agent McGinnis.
Agent McGinnis. I now want to show you just a few photographs. Could you please put up Exhibit 176? I'm showing you Exhibit 176. Fine. Says, can you recognize which gun this is?
Yes.
Which gun is this?
Officer Potter's.
Take a look again. It's the unloaded
Oh,
firearm?
I apologize. Sergeant Johnson's.
Thank you. You said you took several photographs of Officer Johnson. If I showed you two photos of them, would you recognize them?
Yes.
At this time, the state offers exhibits 84 and 85 photographs of Sergeant Johnson. 84 and 85, sir?
Any objection? Exhibits 84 and 85 will be admitted and you may publish.
Please show 84. Agent Frascone, I'm showing you Exhibit 84. Is this the picture of Sergeant Michael Johnson as you saw him on April 11th?
Yes.
Now Exhibit 85. Could you describe what's shown here in Exhibit 85?
That would be Officer Potter's handgun showing that it was loaded and contained within Sergeant Johnson's holster.
Okay. I'd now like to show Exhibit 178, which is already admitted into evidence. Do you recognize which gun this is?
I do.
Which gun is this?
This is Officer Potter's handgun.
Okay. And does it also include the ammo that you discovered in the firearm?
Correct.
Okay. And then Exhibit 179. Again, just a close-up of that serial number, correct?
That's correct.
Then Exhibit 180. Again, the loaded magazine that you discovered?
Correct.
Okay. And then again, Agent Frascone, I'll show you exhibit. I'll speak into the mic in a second. Exhibit 199, would you agree this is Officer Potter's firearm?
Correct.
And that was Exhibit 199. No further questions, Your Honor.
Is there any cross?
No cross.
Step down.
Thank you.
The state may call its next witness.
At this time, the state calls Agent Sam McGinnis.